Also want to get to some national and international news for you. The United States just vetoed a United Nations resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. So instead, the U.S. proposed its own Security Council resolution calling for a temporary ceasefire, again showing increased criticism of Israel's conduct in Gaza since October 7th. All right, back here at home, some really interesting statistics coming out that 1 in 3 Americans are the victim of data breaches, meaning through no fault of their own, their personal information turned up on the dark web because it was with some other company and the company had a data breach. Now, healthcare companies seem to be the biggest targets in this kind of breach. And here in Michigan, the laws that companies have to follow about when they have to notify people that their information is part of a data breach is fairly weak. And that's something that Attorney General Dana Nessel wants to change. I sat down with her to talk about some of the protections out there and what we can look for. When I also think about identity theft and our personal information, I think of these data breaches that it's happening at other companies where we've gone and our information is already in their system and they're the ones getting hacked. We've done all the things correct. What's the laws on the books right now in Michigan in terms of those companies having to identify us within a timely manner that our data has been stolen in a breach?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that because unfortunately we have some of the weakest laws on the books of any state in the union. There are 34 states in America where there's a requirement that if they are subject to a data breach, and now you as their customer, as their patient, you've had your information released to the dark web, that they have to immediately notify you and notify the Attorney General so that the AG's office can get involved and assist you and other customers. That's not the case in Michigan. So we saw this recently with Corewell Health. We had last spring and summer not one, but 2 major data breaches that occurred just within a few months. They didn't tell their customers. They didn't tell the Department of Attorney General. And it wasn't until 6 months later that any of us found out about the data breach. You know how we found out at the Department of Attorney General?
How did you find out?
We found out from customers who were contacting us. And remember, we're not just talking about information like your social security number, your address, your cell phone number. That's all intrusive, invasive, and harmful enough. We're talking about the most sensitive information an individual has. Their medical records, what prescriptions they're taking, what lab reports there are, what diagnoses they've had. All of it now in the hands of a bad actor, some third party out there that can use it, of course, to send you fake bills, but they could also use it for extortion and blackmail against you. So it's terrifying. So what we are urging our legislators to do in both the House and the Senate here in Lansing is to have stronger laws on the books to make sure that within as quick of a time period as possible, once the company learns of the hack, that they have to notify their customers and they have to notify us at the Department of Attorney General. And our laws are actually so weak that do you know that these investigations are basically voluntary on the part of the business as to whether they want to cooperate with us or not. So in cases where you've had multi-state breaches, and it might include Michigan and several other states, we often have to rely on the other states to help with the investigation because we don't have laws that allow us at the Department of Attorney General to do our own independent investigation. And I mean, that's absolutely outrageous. You know, you are trusting your information with whatever this company is.
And you have no choice. Again, if you're looking at a hospital system and that's where you're being treated, that's where your information is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what can you do about it? And the fact is, we want there to be information sharing between your doctors, of course, you know. I mean, how can a doctor effectively treat you if they're, you know, an internist, but maybe they don't know what, you know, your neurologist or a pulmonary specialist says? I mean, you have to have that kind of interaction between physicians and hospital care systems and whatnot, but, you know, it makes it more susceptible to these massive breaches. And so what we're seeing is more and more these data thieves are intentionally targeting healthcare systems, and it's in part because of these major mergers, right? We saw Spectrum and Beaumont merge into Corewell, biggest hospital system in the state now, but when that data breach occurred, it was over 1 million Michigan residence. I mean, it's hard.
I got the paper. Yeah, I got the letter in the mail saying that you have been part of a breach. So,
but what did you do with that?
They said that they would give me credit monitoring, if I wanted to go and do that. And I'm already monitoring my information, so I just didn't take them up on it.
Well, but that's smart, and that's what people should do. I think people a lot of times get frustrated and they feel helpless and they don't know what to do, so they just sort of set it to the side and they don't take any action at all. But doing that's dangerous. And the actions that you took are really the appropriate ones to take to make sure that if anything happens in the future and it's trying to use your information inappropriately, at least you'll be notified. But there are other things that people should do as well, you know? I mean, think about it. You know, if some identity thief out there knows that you've had a number of different types of tests done, well, you're all of a sudden going to start seeing bills that, wait, I thought I paid this. But you don't know because you really did have that test done, and maybe you just paid the bill. So those are the types of things that you should ask questions. You know, don't just automatically assume that you owe money because it indicates that. And the other thing that we want to make sure of is when you're getting sent something, like you got these notices in the mail, right? But other people are going to get the notice in the form of an email. That's not legitimate. They'll get that and they'll say, click on here so we can better assist you, or we'll help to, confirm some of your information or so forth. I mean, those are the kinds of things that can really get you. But there are other basic things that I think people are not as aware of. Like, for instance, you know, maybe around our age or older, maybe you have spent most of your life paying your bills using a good old-fashioned checkbook.
Yep.
You can't do it anymore. I know it sounds so concerning, but you can't send checks anymore. I just had this happen to me 2 weeks ago, and boy did I learn my lesson. I go out there and I give people advice. You should try to pay online, but it happened to me. I paid my credit card using a check. It got stolen, and ultimately, you know, fortunately, because it was my credit card, I didn't lose all of the money, but you know, checks are getting stolen in the mail all the time, and we advise people not to do it. We advise people to have two-factor at all times for anything that they use online that's associated with anything financially, or that has your personal information. We tell people to have, you know, sophisticated passwords. Don't make your password be your birthday or, you know, your dog's name. And change them frequently. And I know it's so frustrating. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of effort, but I guess I look at it sort of like, you know, time was when we were kids, we didn't wear seatbelts, but we started to do it every time we got into a car because we knew that it made it safer for us and we were less likely to be injured or killed in a car crash. Time was we never used sunscreen, but we saw that people got skin cancer by doing that. So we made sure every time we went out, if we were going to be outside and the sun was shining, we always slathered ourselves with sunscreen. It's the same thing. We have to understand that it's not an issue of will you be a victim of identity theft, and making sure that you're doing all the things to ensure that you're minimizing those chances, or when it does happen, that you're not as affected.